Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at some source material that's, well, pretty intense. Not just for what it predicts, but the sheer speed it claims things will happen.
That's right. We're diving into a specific accelerated timeline for what the source calls the big ugly, a major socioeconomic shift.
And our focus, it's this timeline they lay out, mainly from early 2023 through mid-2025, covering banking, real estate, politics,
Sure.
the works.
Exactly. And just to be clear up front, our job here isn't to endorse this, but to analyze it. We're here to impartially unpack the mechanisms and the really aggressive schedule the source puts forward.
Yeah.
It's all based on this idea that the current system is, well, already toast.
Yeah, the core mission is understanding that speed. The source basically says the clock started ticking back in March 2023, and the predicted velocity of this whole financial and social change just overrides anything the establishment might have planned.
And right away, the first big piece is this financial cascade. It kicks off with banks. The source notes they were already failing back on March 10th.
Okay, so that's the starting gun for what they call the banking breakdown timeline.
Right.
So what's the prediction there? A rolling collapse.
Yeah, a rolling collapse hitting hard in April. Specifically, they pinpoint the end of the first week of April.
And how does it look? Does it start big?
Not necessarily. The source says it might look like just small local banks failing or maybe getting merged at first, but the real danger is, like, systemic.
Okay, explain that, the mechanism.
It's basically a domino effect. The source describes how one bank holds another bank's debt as an asset, right? Supposedly safe. But when that first bank goes under, poof, the asset vanishes. Suddenly, it's a liability for the second bank.
I see, so one pulls down the next.
Exactly. It triggers this rapid cascade of failures, and the immediate result, available financing just dries up fast.
Wow. And this financial mess, it spills over, right, into government.
Instantly. Before May even hits, the source predicts this major hidden fight between big U.S. and European banks.
A fight about what?
The claim is that the U.S. side will try to save its own system, specifically what the source calls the Federal Reserve System, even if it means damaging relationships with Europe.
Okay, we should probably pause here on the language. The source is pretty critical of the Fed, right?
Very. It calls it not federal, having no reserves, and not a bank. Basically frames the whole thing as a giant Ponzi scheme that's, falling apart.
Right. So, if the U.S. does prioritize saving its system, what's the immediate fallout according to this timeline?
It's pretty dramatic. The source claims this move would, quote, derail, for instance, all the funding for Ukraine.
Seriously? Just like that?
That's the prediction. And not just Ukraine. Other government funding, domestic too, just vanishes because the money flow stops.
Okay, that's huge. And how does this hit, like, regular people?
Through real estate, the timeline moves fast here. Starting in May, it predicts the U.S. real estate market collapses in a, quote, very significant way.
And that's tied directly back to the lack of financing.
Directly. No money available, deals fall through. And it specifically mentions people with floating interest rates on their loans.
Oh, yeah, they'd be.
In a world of hurt, is the phrase used. It even suggests that platforms like Zillow and the MLS itself may break.
Break, like technically.
Yeah.
Or just become irrelevant.
It sounds like maybe both. Like the system can't handle the chaos or the lack of actual transactions.
And didn't the source mention something specific about Washington State? An anecdote.
Yes, exactly. They use Washington as an example of what they expect to see everywhere. A split market.
A split how?
You have cash buyers, apparently desperate to get out of cash, making multiple offers on the few desirable properties.
Okay.
But then, like, 80 or 90% of the listings get no offers. They just sit there for hundreds of days.
So the source argues it's a liquidity problem, not necessarily that the houses aren't worth anything yet.
Exactly. It's about the money flow freezing up first.
Okay. Now, there was another term related to this financial meltdown. The crack-up boom. What is that?
Yeah, the crack-up boom. The source uses that to describe this, like final frenzy. They estimate maybe 20,000 shaky institutions, banks, funds, whatever, are going under.
20,000.
That's the number they throw out. But before they collapse, they apparently make this desperate last-ditch effort to manipulate the stock market.
Like a final crazy surge.
Sort of a destructive, high-speed speculation right before the lights go out.
But amidst all this collapse, the source also predicts something new emerging, a different way of financing things.
Right. That's the interesting part. With the traditional banks predicted to be gone, or at least sidelined.
Yep.
The source details this new mechanism. It shifts to local, crowdsourced financing.
Crowdsourced, like Kickstarter for everything.
Kind of. The idea is security comes from local trust. People pre-finance or pay forward for goods and services directly within their community.
Interesting. So bypassing the centralized system entirely?
Yeah, the source sees this as more resilient because it blames that centralized fractional reserve system for the whole mess in the first place.
Okay, so this shift away from central banks towards local trust, that sets up the next phase in their timeline, doesn't it? The psychological part.
It does. Starting in May, this is what the source calls the normie awakening.
The normie awakening. Okay, unpack that. Who are the normies and what are they waking up to?
Normies is just their term for, the general public. People usually not paying close attention to deep politics or finance.
Right.
And the prediction is a huge sudden jump in awareness. A peak realization hitting in May.
Realization of what?
That the crises, the problems, the source even mentions deliberate poisoning wasn't accidental, that it was, in their view, a deliberate act, a psychological op run by the government.
Wow, that's a heavy claim. What makes them so sure this happens in May?
They predict a flood of proof, evidence of criminality emerging every damn day, multiple times a day.
What kind of proof? Financial? Political?
It seems like all of the above. The financial collapse is the trigger that supposedly makes it impossible to hide anymore. Corruption, deception, it all comes out.
And this leads to a situation where it's just accepted that politicians are.
Yeah, the source says it becomes a recognized part of the social order that everybody's a criminal in politics.
Okay. And this creates a specific problem for certain politicians. The source called them.
The useful idiot politicians. Yes.
Oh, really?
State, county, federal level folks. House members, judges. People who, according to the source, genuinely thought they won fair and square.
Oh.
And they suddenly realized they were just pawns allied with what the source calls a criminal gang.
And that realization adds fuel to the fire.
Big time. According to this timeline, it accelerates the political chaos.
Which makes sense if the financial ground is collapsing under the government at the same time. You said that becomes obvious in May.
First week of May, yeah. And then, boom, June sees government programs rapidly defunded.
And that's when we get to that really stark prediction. The EBT card.
Yeah, I mean, that detail really stands out. The idea that by July or August, state governments are freaking out. Federal money has basically stopped.
Local news folding.
Right, no money there either. And yeah, the EBT card may be buying just a single cup of coffee if you're lucky. It's meant to show a complete collapse of federal spending power.
So with everything falling apart, the source blames the mother waffers. What do they do?
The source uses that colorful term for the core group they see as responsible. By June, they supposedly need a giant distraction.
Like what?
They might try to engineer a day of rage, maybe push it to July or August.
Will it work?
The source says no. They predict it'll be a lame-ass self-deflating balloon. They seem convinced this core group is doomed by this point.
And they even specify who might be involved in this failed rage day.
Interestingly, yeah, they suggest maybe only fringe groups like Antifa because they think other groups like BLM might actually be defunded by then, less reach.
Okay, so the distraction fails. This leads into the summer months, June, July, August, which the source calls the most active period.
The most active, big, ugly days, yeah. June is predicted to be this rapid turning point. You have the normies educating themselves, getting involved.
A vast rebellion was the term.
That's it. A massive pushback against anything seen as coming from the federal government or that criminal core's agenda.
And they mention specific issues that become flashpoints.
Yes. Things like trans anywhere on social media and climate change are highlighted as areas facing huge public resistance.
And this period gets darker, more visceral.
Yeah, the predictions here become extremely serious, visible public emotional actions, and then assassinations.
Okay, let's be really clear here. This is the source's prediction, and it's incredibly grim.
Extremely. And we have to stress, the source presents this with very strong causal language. They frame it as a two-way street.
Meaning?
First, they claim the core criminal group starts assassinating politicians they can't trust anymore to silence them.
Okay.
And second, they predict normies, reacting to this idea of being poisoned, will assassinate doctors and nurses. It's a really dark forecast of total social breakdown.
Wow. Okay. And at the same time, the state, or what's left of it, tries to fight back. Something about a star chamber?
Yeah. Yes, a desperate countermove. The source predicts an attempt to set up these secret courts.
Secret courts.
Yeah, again, the source gets very specific and uses strong language, pointing to figures like the Washington State AG, Ferguson labeling him a communist, trying to create courts that meet secretly. Here, secret evidence.
I guess, too.
Dissenters, conservatives, people labeled violent extremists.
And the justification for this is January 6th.
The source says that's the pretext used, but it also predicts the whole effort fails by June.
Why does it fail?
Because, according to the timeline, the public by then understands the real motivations. They realize January 6th was not an insurrection, in the source's view, and that understanding undermines the justification for these secret courts. Public awareness is positioned as the antidote.
So looking back at this whole sequence, April, bank failures, May awakening, June, government collapse and rebellion, July, August, rage attempts and violence.
Yeah.
The defining element is just how fast it all supposedly happens. It feels less like a decline and more like falling off a cliff.
Absolutely. The speed is everything in this prediction. It's meant to overwhelm any existing plans or countermeasures the establishment might have. It's presented as a flash flood, not a gradual tide.
Does this source give any indication of how long this intense period, this big ugly, lasts? Is there an end in sight in their model?
They do offer a longer view, yeah. The prediction is the main collapse phase lasts at least 2 full years, so 2023 and 2024.
2 years of that kind of chaos.
That's the time frame. They see things potentially stabilizing around March or April of 2025.
And then what? Back to normal?
Not exactly normal. After stabilization, they predict another 6, maybe years dedicated to rebuilding the financial structure, rebuilding the nation itself.
6 more years, so we're talking nearly a decade from start to, well, not finished, but a rebuilt stage.
That seems to be the scale of the transformation envisioned in this material.
You know, despite predicting this incredibly destructive period, the source material ends on a strangely optimistic note, or at least energetic.
It does. There's this...
The challenge this source throws down isn't just if these events could happen, but if our current systems could possibly withstand even a fraction of that predicted speed. That April to August window, it's brutal.
It really is.
It leaves you thinking, if things really did shift towards that localized, crowdsourced model for resilience, what would that even look like? How fundamentally different would our financial lives, our communities be compared to everything we know now? It's a lot to mull over.
Right.